Hey guys, welcome into this Y'all Politics broadcast. I'm Frank Corder with Y'all Politics, and joining me today are the two chairmen of our state parties. On the Democrat side is, of course, Judge Tyree Irving, and on the Republican side is Frank Bordeaux. Both of these guys are the new chairmen, so to speak. You've been in your role for a few weeks now. I'll start with Judge Irving first. Judge, how has your time been as the new chairman of the Democratic Party here in Mississippi?
I almost have not had time to say grace over my food. I've been so busy, extremely busy. You know, I came in at a time when we were in the middle of our campaign here in Mississippi, and just trying to get up to speed and get my arms around the day-to-day operation of the party. It kept me really busy. And then we went immediately, into a virtual national convention. So it's been busy, but it's been fulfilling.
Frank, same question to you.
Look, it's been about 2 months. I've put about 12,000 miles on my car in the 2 months traveling the state. Was thrown right into the middle of the national elections and some of the statewide. And I've learned a lot about what we got to work on, what we need to do better, and what we're doing really great at. And so now we're jumped right from that into municipal elections. And so it's been a little whirlwind. No rest for the weary.
Let's talk about that election cycle just for a second, and we'll start with Frank here first here on this question. Kind of give us your assessment of the results and the impact of what this 2020 election cycle had from a GOP standpoint.
Look, in Mississippi, we've been very successful over the past several years. 2020 was no exception. In Mississippi, you saw gains across the board. Nationally, they predicted a big blue wave. We didn't see the big blue wave. In fact, we saw us gain seats all across the country. In the House, we picked up a governorship. We picked up state houses. And we really did well down ballot. And so I think in Mississippi, we saw 100,000 new voters cast votes. Most of those went to the GOP. And so I think you're seeing the Mississippi Republican Party continue to grow. Since the election, we've had a number of down ticket Democrats that were elected Democrats that have switched parties. I have over 37 Democrats that want to meet between now and the first quarter of next year to talk about moving over to the Republican Party. So I feel very good about down ticket elections and down ticket switch overs.
So, Judge, following up with what Frank just said here, Democrats in Mississippi have struggled for a number of years now, but nationally they didn't live up to their billing, but they did win the White House. It looks like. What's your assessment of the party at this point and the impact of this cycle?
Well, let me just speak about it locally here in Mississippi first, and then I'll comment nationally. I'm really encouraged about the future of the Democratic Party in Mississippi. Let's be clear about that. There are a couple of things that happened. Really was three things that happened in the November 3rd election that gives me reason to believe that we can make some gains here in Mississippi, and we will make some gains. Number one, we passed the flag initiative. Now, the Democratic Party endorsed all three of those initiatives. I don't think the Republican Party did so. Mr. Bordeaux is here now, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. But the Democratic Party, and I'd like to know that, the Democratic Party endorsed all three of those initiatives. I didn't get as much publicity out as I wanted to on those because of so many other things that I was having to deal with and being new at the business. But the passing of the flag initiative is a big thing. It says to me, now I know there were, of course, both Republicans and Democrats who voted. And I don't know what the breakdown is between the Democrats and the Republicans on the flag initiative itself. And I don't know if anybody has that precise information. But what that says to me, that there is at least a majority of Mississippians who understand that there is a need to come together and go forward in a positive way. Now, what my task as the chairman of the party and the Democrats in Mississippi has to be, and that is coming up with the message to communicate with at least that segment of the population that was willing to move forward on an issue that has been very divisive in this state for a long time. The last time that was on the ballot, you know what happened, it went down to defeat. So this time it was passed. I understand for sure that, you know, business was behind it, and then the Southern Baptists got behind it. You know what the Republican Party was until the business stepped in, and until the Southern Baptist stepped in, the Republican Party was against it. And if I'm wrong about that, you can correct me, but I don't think so. When they stepped in and said, this is good for Mississippi, and then the governor changed his tune about what he was willing to do. So I think that there is that segment out there that are persuadable. And when we get the right message, you know, there's been a narrative that has been fostered here in Mississippi for years that keep Democrats and Republicans, black and white, average Mississippians from coming together. But that day is over. We're going to work on that, and we're going to change that.
Well, Frank, I'll give you a chance to respond.
I would love to respond.
Level, while it is,
well, hold on. I want to respond to the flag, because as you just ended your statement, is you're looking at the future of the state and the positive future of the state. Make no mistake about it. It was a Republican House, supermajority Republican House, a Republican Senate that voted to change the flag. A Republican governor signed on to that. Republicans across the state made it very clear that they were standing behind changing the flag. They worked hard. They gave up their resources in order to campaign towards that. 73% of the Mississippians voted. And so those were overwhelmingly, those were Republican voters. And so making the flag a partisan issue, I think, is disingenuous. And I don't believe that the flag was a partisan issue. It's a Mississippi issue. And I think the Republicans wholeheartedly got behind as far as endorsing non-political issues, non-partisan issues. I don't think that the Republican Party is going to get involved in endorsing non-partisan issues. I think the endorsement was each one of those Republicans in the House and the Senate that overwhelmingly voted to change the flag, and the Republican governor that signed it into law was endorsement enough.
So, Judge, back to you. Let's go back to the impact on the.
That's being disingenuous. The Republican, if it's a non-partisan issue, then why is it that the Republican Party could not have endorsed a non-partisan issue?
We endorsed it. We endorsed by voting for it.
Wait a minute. It's an issue that all Mississippians who are concerned about the future of the part of this state moving forward. You know, I'm tired of being last or next to last in this state on everything. I have been here all of my life, and I plan to take my last breath here in Mississippi. But we, in order to make Mississippi what it can be, what it should be, and what it should have been in the yesteryears, we got to be honest. First of all, you got to quit having an assault on the truth. And to say that that flag was a partisan issue, it's ridiculous. Or it is, if it's a partisan issue, then it simply says that, okay, Democrats were for something that was progressive and the Republicans were not. My point is, if it was something that we all should move forward together on, then I don't see any reason why both parties should not have endorsed it. I can
73 over 73% of Mississippians voted for it. That means the vast majority of Republicans voted for the changing of the flag. That is the endorsement. The election ultimately is the endorsement. And so I think Mississippi showed what Mississippi can do. And I believe that this kind of conversation creates bigger divide than what we need. We did a great thing in Mississippi. I think it's time to move on and to create a divide over the flag issue, I think is not healthy for anybody.
Let me just say one other thing, and I'll be done with it.
Okay.
It's not creating a divide. The good Mississippians, both Democrats and Republicans, did what was good for Mississippi without the leadership of the Republican Party. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. When I say the leadership,
A
I'm
Republican.
simply meant, no, wait, let me back up and correct that. I mean the Republican Party. Without the Republican Party, there were, of course, many Republicans who pushed that. And it did not happen the way it should have happened until business and the Southern Baptists got behind it. I'm simply saying that you ought to show leadership for issues that are nonpartisan, that are good for Mississippi. And I think removing an obstacle that was divisive in Mississippi was good for Mississippi. And I don't make that, I don't say that's a partisan issue at all.
So let's go back to the national level and get your assessment, Judge Tyree, about how the national politics plays out here in Mississippi.
Well, clearly we didn't do as well nationally as I had hoped and as many others has hoped. But it's not all lost yet. You know, we got a runoff in Georgia for, I believe it's January 5, 2021. And of course, we as Democrats are making a significant, serious push to win those 2 seats. And if we win those 2 seats, then we've already won the presidency. Then we will have both the House and the and the Senate. And I think we can do good things for this nation if we flip the Senate. But even if we aren't successful in flipping the Senate, to say that you didn't do as well as you had hoped is not to say that you didn't do well, that you didn't do okay. I mean, we didn't lose a House, and we potentially may, even if we win only one of the ones in Georgia, because I think they'll go as a pair. But if we win only one, then we're still better off than we were before 2020 elections. So I don't see that as a as a loss or an abandonment of the democratic values. You know, there are a lot of factors that go into a decision that a voter makes because politics, there's a whole cliche, all politics are local. And, depending on who the candidate is and in the region where they are, all of that has some effect on what the ultimate outcome would be. So the fact that the blue wave was not as strong or as significant as folks had thought doesn't cause me to believe that the Democrats are in trouble nationally. We are not.
Chairman Bordeaux, your response to that and the GOP's impact on national politics and how they perform this election cycle?
Yeah, you saw 14 women, most of which were veterans that ran for the House, and one were picking up seats in largely Democrat areas. We picked up 4 in California, that largest gains in California in over 10 years. We're picking up in liberal areas in New York. I think that you're seeing a difficulty of Democrats throughout the United States that are going to support the national narrative of the current Democrat Party, just as you're seeing in the state of Mississippi. It's very hard to be a Democrat in the state of Mississippi when their national platform is not in line with our values, and they're not in line with Americans' values all across this country. And so they predicted a massive blue wave. The national media and all the national pollsters predicted a national blue wave, and it didn't happen. In fact, you saw gains on the Republican side. And the very significant point that I'd like to point out is when we take over the state houses, when redistricting happens across this country, 2022 is going to be very, very difficult for the Democrat Party all across the country. And so I don't believe that there's a Democrat pundit right now or a Democrat strategist nationally that is not afraid of what's happening in the future of the Democrat Party. You have a true fraction within the United States House between Democrats, between what is a so-called moderate Democrat and the liberal Democrats, AOC and her squad, that are dividing their party. And so a socialist idea of the party, if they don't reject that, they're going to lose. Americans showed that this election cycle.
Judge?
Well, let me just say this. The Republican Party nationally stood behind Donald Trump, and nationally, America rejected Donald Trump and his policies. So I'm not to say that there are divisions within the Democratic Party about how to move forward is not a bad sign. What is a bad sign and what is horrible and terrible for America is for people in the Republican Party on the national level and even on local levels to be afraid to stand on the side of truth, because you got a president who by any objective analysis is a racist, is a person who engaged in fear mongering, name calling like a schoolyard bully, and you are not able to stand up and condemn that. But you have the gall to talk about divisions in the Democratic Party when the divisions about how you move progressively. Do you move too far this way, or you stay here, or do you go there? But it's not about, there is no division in the Democratic Party about condemning racism, condemning hatred, about
I don't believe that there's anybody, there's not a person in the Republican.
Other Americans. There is no division in the Democratic Party. We all stand against that. And I wish all Republicans would stand against that at the national level as well as the local level.
I don't believe.
We'll give Chairman Bordeaux a chance to respond.
Yeah, there's not an honest Republican. There's not a Republican that does not condemn racism, or bigotry or hatred. I think that is completely, if you want to look at the policies of President Trump, we can look at the policies, but to name call him is not going to be, calling him names doesn't help anything. His policies work for America. We just had the largest growth in GDP growth ever in the third quarter of this past year. We were growing the economy prior to an international pandemic at levels that we've never seen for all Americans, white Americans, Black Americans, Latino Americans. The economy was growing for everybody. Job growth was happening. We were investing in opportunity zones. We were doing things that Democrats talked about, but we delivered. And so to start name calling the president is one thing. You can do that if you want to. But if you want to talk about true policies, we can talk about his policies all day long.
We will. Let me talk about one: separating children, babies from their parent. That's a policy of the Trump administration. Are you prepared to condemn that right now on the screen right now? Let's talk about some other policies.
There were opportunities.
America, wait a minute. I didn't interrupt you, Mr. Bordeaux. America, we said that, Reagan, a Republican that a lot of Republicans today revere, said America is a shining city on the hill. You think America shines so bright on the hill on the Trump administration when, number one, you allow refusing to allow people to come to the country. Now, I understand when the coronavirus hit, we got a different situation, but before that, you are refusing to allow people to come to this country simply because of their religious belief. And we say in America, you'll be able to worship God as you see fit, but you won't let certain people come in. That's a policy of the Trump administration. And all of the debt that the Republican administration has placed on your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren. To talk about a booming economy with a booming debt doesn't make a lot of sense to me. When Bill Clinton left the White House, we were not in debt. I mean, we had a surplus that we handed over to George Bush. When Barack Obama came in, we had to clean up a mess that the Republicans have left. So if you want to borrow your way into prosperity, and pass that debt on to your children and grandchildren, then have at it. But that ain't what we as Democrats.
Let's let Chairman Bordeaux respond, and then we'll move on to a different topic. Okay.
No, and I think that that you just hit on a good point. Right now, we're having a national discussion we have had for the last 3-4 months of how to help American families and American employers that have been hit by this pandemic so hard. And while we're trying to have that discussion, have an honest discussion about it, the national Democrats have decided to tie into this bill Democrat-ran cities and states that poorly ran their states to bail them out. While Mississippi was saving money, we had the strongest unemployment trust fund. We had a rainy day fund of $550 million. By the way, your party ran against those policies. We didn't know there was a pandemic coming. Thank goodness that we were able to save money. We cut taxes, we cut spending. And right now, the National Democrats talk about trying to spend our future generations' money. Right now, the National Democrats are trying to spend money to bail out Democrat-ran cities and states all across this country that for decades have been irresponsible with their taxpayer dollars, and they expect the national government to bail them out. The Republicans have rejected that. We want to bail out the restaurants. We want to bail out the employers that have lost business at no fault of their own. And I want to take another point to say that in 2020, while other states were completely locked down, they have seen 1 out of 5 small businesses may not come back due to the pandemic. That's not happening in Mississippi. And in fact, the numbers just came out. We are 8.6% ahead of what we sine-died our budget. We are having one of the best Octobers we've ever had. They're saying that November is going to be better than last year's November. And the capital investment in the state of Mississippi during pandemic, while other states are shut down and losing businesses, in the state of Mississippi, we're up 147% over 2019. 2019 was a record year. So conservative policies work. Conservative policies of cutting budgets.
Let's stop right there just for a second and get to the next topic, because you're heading into my next topic, which is state government. Where does each party think that we should go in our state government going into the 2021 session? I'll start with Chairman Bordeaux.
Going into 2021 session, we have a very, you saw the governor's plan, it's a very aggressive plan to work towards cutting income tax, work towards continuing what the Republican government, and keep in mind, this will only be our 10th session that we've had a Republican speaker, a Republican lieutenant governor, and a Republican governor. We have been laser focused on putting money into the classrooms at specific initiatives. The governor's budget lays that out. And so, we've seen significant gains in education, state of Mississippi over the past 10 years, especially significant gains in the free and reduced lunch in poorer crowds, gains in math and science, math and reading, in 4th grade and 8th grade attainment levels. That's where they look at those numbers. It doesn't fit the national media that Mississippi is doing great. You know, Mississippi is typically the first into a recession. We're the last out of a recession. We went into a recession in March of this year, and we were one of the first states to pop out of a recession because of our policies. This coming session, we're going to continue to build on those successes over the past 9 years. I know that Lieutenant Governor Hoseman and Speaker Gunn have very aggressive initiatives that they want to push through, and we have a supermajority in both the House and Senate, and so I think we'll be able to get these agendas passed.
So Judge Irving, my question to you is, where does the Democrat Party think we should be going from a policy standpoint heading into next session?
Well, we really ought to work on making sure that the people who are on the front line of this epidemic and all Mississippians have affordable, adequate health care. We don't know what the long-term effects of people who have recovered from the coronavirus, COVID-19, what those long-term effects will be. We ought to, I would hope that there will be a significant push to make sure that people could have affordable health care. That's going to be needed. I would hope that at least there would be an effort, there would be a joint effort from across both aisles to address that need. I think there is a need for, I think we've started it, but we need to push forward with broadband throughout Mississippi. You know, most of Mississippi is rural. You know, if we would have had the quality broadband that we needed out there, I think dealing with this pandemic would have been a lot easier in terms of addressing the educational needs of kids if everybody would have had access to it. I think that's important. I think it'll creates jobs, and it'll continue to create jobs. You know, in addition to that, I think Mississippi has to take more than just a casual look at how it educates its children. We have, you know, everybody can complain about what the public schools are not doing. I don't think that, you know, the charter school is the panacea or the answer to all our problems. I understand that that's a problem, been with us for a while, but I don't think we need to turn it loose until such time as every Mississippian young person has the opportunity to get a quality education from K all the way through 12. So you'll be prepared when you get, or if you choose to go into college, that you'll be prepared to be able to do the heavy lifting there. And, you know, it's a national problem, but student debt is a real problem. I wish the Mississippi Legislature would take a look at that and see how it might be able to be of some help in that regard.
So any common ground we can find here together today on some policy initiatives? You've heard both of you speak about this. You've both seen the governor's and the legislative proposals. Any common ground? I'll start with Judge Irving first. Anything from the GOP side that you might could say, hey, that's a good idea?
Well, you know, if the GOP is willing to try to provide health care for all Mississippians that desperately need it, I don't know why that should not be some place that we could have common ground on. I mean, you know, we having people who work. Here's my concern. If you work 40 hours a week and then sometimes a second or a third job, for if not a full 40 hours, 10 or 15 hours on the second or third job, and you cannot afford medical insurance, isn't something wrong with that? Would we want to help somebody? That's not a lazy person. That's not somebody sitting around for a handout. That's a person who's getting up and working every day, that making life more comfortable for those of us who don't do those kind of jobs, but yet they don't earn enough to be able to have affordable health care. I also think Mississippi needs to look a little bit closer at, you know, child care assistance. I mean, there are a lot of issues that if we could just sit down and have an honest discussion about it, I think people you could find common ground, but it's not in the best interest of a lot of politicians at the state level as well as the national level to solve some of these problems. Because if you could bring people together, then some of the stuff that goes on at the state level and the national level that benefit the very top small percent of people in the state or in the country, they would not be able to continue to have those sort of benefits at the expense of working class Americans and working class Mississippians.
Chairman Bordeaux, any common ground you can find? I didn't hear much from Judge Irving right there, but any specific policy positions where you can find some common ground?
Well, obviously, when it comes to public education, I think that the Republican Party has shown a commitment over the past 9 years. It looks like this coming session that's going to be something that's taken very serious. They take a scalpel approach and put the money into the classroom to the student rather than give the money to administration, say spend it how you please. But I want to go back to there was a lot of statements that were made by Judge Irving, and you know, a lot of things that he said that he wants as a priority in 2020 session was a priority in the 2019 session by the Republicans, whether it's rural broadband that was to address, and we spent a tremendous amount of money on rural broadband, getting technology to students. You know, we just put out, I think, 314,000 tablets to schools across our state. We were rated as the gold standard in the nation of getting our technology after the pandemic started to our students. And so I think that, you know, we took a holistic approach to getting technology to all of our school districts, to all of our students. And I believe that public education in the state of Mississippi should be a good public education for all students, regardless of where they come from. That has been our policy. And so going back to what you said as our 2020 initiatives, the Republican Party took care of in 2019. And so if, I'm not sure as far as the expansion of Medicaid, I think that that's what you're responding to. If you show us how we can afford it as the state of Mississippi, if the Democrats can show us how we can afford it, $1 out of $5, if we do nothing today, $1 out of $5 that is spent out of state dollars in the state of Mississippi are going to go to Medicaid. It's our second largest expenditure behind education, and that includes IHL and the community colleges. It's a very large number in Mississippi already. And so if you can show how we can afford to do that, I think that anybody will take a look at it. But we got to be honest, there's only a finite amount of money in state government, and increasing taxes is not going to be the answer. We have to promote business growth, and we have to give people their money back.
Okay.
Let me say this,
Sure.
because I think I was misunderstood. I wasn't suggesting that there was nothing done in the way of broadband or education in 2019. The job is not completed. It's not done yet. I simply said I would think that we would continue to push in that direction. At least that was the input of what I was trying to say. And I'm not talking about Medicaid expansion. I don't care what you call it. I simply say that if people work full-time jobs, more than one job, and don't make enough money to be able to afford health care, we ought to be able to, that's a problem, and we ought to be able to do something about it. We need to study it, but that's a problem. If a person is working and can't afford health care, do we want them to simply die when they have a need for health services and they can't afford it? Or, we're going to pay for it one way or the other. The person is going to the emergency room, and all of us who paying taxes is going to pay for it. I understand it's a complicated issue. I'm simply saying that we ought to focus on it and try to figure out a solution to the problem. That's all I'm saying.
And one thing that we've done, and we've been pushing for, and I know Governor Reeves and Lieutenant Governor Hoseman and Speaker Gunn are very committed. They were committed prior to the pandemic to the expansion of telehealth. Telehealth has expanded tremendously due to the pandemic. That is going to give lots of people throughout the state of Mississippi better access to care. We've also encouraged to have residency in more of our rural hospitals and increase that program. That's going to give our rural communities access to better care. The statistics show that if a young doctor does their residency in a small community or any community, they're likely to stay in that community. And so we have to encourage those, and we have been encouraging them. The pandemic has sped up the telehealth aspect of it, and we've gotten very good. All of our hospitals have gotten very good at telehealth. I think access to healthcare in Mississippi is at one of its greatest levels it's ever been. And so I do agree with you. It's a complicated issue. I appreciate the fact that you said that expanding Medicaid is probably not going to be the answer. We will work towards an answer. It's going to be something that's going to be a difficult situation, just as education for all Americans. It's not isolated to Mississippi. That's a national issue.
So let's do this. We got about a minute left here in our segment. And again, thank y'all for joining us. It's been a great conversation today. Moving into next year are the city elections. Just a 30-second quick quip from each of you on where you think your party stands heading into those vital elections on the local level. Judge Irving, you first.
I'll just tell you the Democrats going to make some gains in the municipal election next year. I'll stake my word and my honor on it. We're going to do better than a lot of folks think we're going to do. We're going to have good candidates, and they're going to win some elections. And I can tell you this, you might be surprised, but it's going to happen. I guarantee you. And if it doesn't happen, I'll be willing to come back and say how badly I misjudged it. But I'm focusing on that with laser vision, with eagle eyes for the municipal election. I know we don't have much time, and I won't be able to do as much as I hope, but we're going to make some gains. You'll be able to say the Democrats are on their way back at the local level.
Chairman Bordeaux.
We've identified several seats at the municipal level that we believe are vulnerable. You're going to have a longtime Democrat mayor that is going to switch over to the Republican Party here in the next week or so. We just had a few local folks in Lafayette County that have moved. I think that you're seeing, a wave of people that were in Democrat areas that are reaching out to the party and saying, we need y'all's help. We want to be part of the party. We can't be part of the national Democrat narrative. And so I think you're going to continue to see that. I think we got about 40, 45 individuals that we believe that we can pick up seats from the municipal side. And so we're working very hard. We got volunteers working on that and interns working on that daily. Since the end of the national election, we focus on the municipal election. I'll be traveling the state. Our new URF chairperson will be traveling the state, and our staff's going to be traveling the state in recruitment of volunteers and then recruitment of dollars.
Thank you both for joining us today, and we thank you for watching here on Y'all Politics and y'allpolitics.com. And guys, look, y'all have a very tough job, and we all understand that, and we appreciate your time. This has been a great conversation, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you to Y'all Politics.
Thank you very much, guys.